So you're now pushing the Q-tip horizontally into your face.
Jacko now has his fantastic abs out. So does Ben.
Control your breathing, change your perception of effort.
What do you think is the biggest mistake that we're making breathing-wise?
Speed.
Speed of breathing.
Speed is the kingpin. Speed is the domino that affects everything else.
Hello and welcome to the Men's Health Built for Life podcast. Today, delighted to be joined by the one and only David Jackson.
Jacko, thank you for joining us, mate. It's a pleasure.
Thanks.
Great to see you, man.
Thanks for having us, yeah.
For anyone not familiar, you're a former rugby player turned breathing coach, strength and conditioning specialist, and now author of Breathe Smarter, Run Stronger. Congratulations on the book. I know it's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
After a traumatic brain injury ended his 13-year rugby career, Jacko began exploring, going down the rabbit hole of the science of breathing as part of his recovery, a journey that transformed not only his health, but his running performance. He now works with elite and international athletes, helping them optimize breathing for performance, recovery, and resilience, and has become one of the leading voices on how smarter breathing can unlock untapped potential in endurance sport. Sound about right?
It sounds good. It's like, so yeah, that sounds.
That's me.
Come meet that guy. It's so I declare an interest that Jacko, in your previous life, you ran the School of Calisthenics as well with Tim, and I was a massive devotee to the School of Calisthenics.
Came to one of the
Came to your sessions.
workshops, yeah.
I used to do stuff online with your, and then the world of calisthenics was something that you were really passionate about as well for a while, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Are you still doing any of that sort of stuff?
Yeah, like body weight training is still a part of how I train and look after my body, mainly sort of the upper body components. But it's just been, as I fell in love with running, it's sort of just gradually morphed its way into like, I want to focus on running more now, so there's less of that happening. Yeah,
still looking great shape though, and the running and the breath work is clearly a big part of that. I think we should start with the book and where it came from and your passion for breath work. I think you say that you had a PB, a 5K PB that you knocked a minute off because you got your breathing right.
Well, which some people might find difficult to.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. As the story goes, it's at the start of to introduce the sort of book, like post my brain injury and being able to get back to running, because running was the thing that would bring on my symptoms the most, as the hardest thing for me to get over. Once I built up enough resilience, like the calisthenics was all very static things that didn't trigger my symptoms, but running was something that.
Can I ask what the brain injury was?
So I had a seizure on the training field and a small bleed on the brain after a lot of brain injury, like concussions through my career. There was an accumulative build-up that led to me being more susceptible to being knocked out and more severe injuries, despite a very innocuous challenge in training was what the last one
That led to that sort of the drama of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got this brain injury and symptoms that you're trying to manage and navigate, and then you get into running.
Yeah, well, I get into breathing off of the back of me and my wife trying to just explore any opportunities there are around what can we do holistically to help with brain health. Because when you've had the number of brain injuries I've had and the traumatic brain injury incident that I've had, you're now in this sort of classification of being early onset of dementia as a bit of a dark cloud like hanging over, and you don't know. I mean, at the time of the recovery, you don't know how well you're going to recover, how long it's going to take. But yeah, you don't know what's going to happen in the future. So brain health was significant for both of us because my state massively affected. We'd only just got married in June, and I had my brain injury in the August, and like I wasn't the person that I was, yeah. But anyway, so she took a big onus on like, okay, gut health is a big thing first, or nutrition. And we'd seen some interesting research around the link between your gut and your brain, around the gut-brain axis, which then just sort of, you're going down these little rabbit holes. And there was one about breathing, and it was like, if you've had a traumatic brain injury, it's likely that the respiratory centers that are smack bang in the middle of your brainstem have been disrupted, affected. And I thought, well, that's interesting, because I don't ever remember I was always one of the fittest in the team. I don't remember ever having a problem with my breathing, but I have had a brain injury. How do I assess my breathing? And, that was something that was like, how do you know if you're any good at breathing or not? It's a bit of a weird question.
We just do it, don't we?
Yeah, and I was quite dismissive of it all at first. That's where I came across the Oxford Advantage and Patrick McEwen's work that a lot of people probably have come across. And I ranked as a sort of severe asthmatic bottom of the scale breather. And I was like, this is weird, but interesting in that I've had the brain injury that this research is saying there's some sort of link there. What was nice about the breathing was it exposed a little bit of my undiagnosed lack of recovery. So nervous system dysregulation. I had very low stress resilience, poor sleep, even though I was seemingly able to do plenty of things. And it wasn't until I took the breathing seriously that improving blood flow and oxygen supply to the brain as part of that, and then regulating the nervous system. And once you've sort of rebalanced your nervous system when it's been off whack, you then look back and you're like, oh wow, yeah, I didn't realize like I wasn't sleeping well, but it just became our norm. My ability to just, I'd just get a letter through the post from HMRC and it would just be like, you just have to fill in your tax return like everyone gets. And I just couldn't cope with things like that were outside of my control, that were just nothing things to do. So that really changed everything from a health perspective. We were doing the calisthenics, working with Paralympic athletes at the same time. And I never thought about the breathing actually affecting performance until I then do this 5K. It was at Sheffield Park Run, one I'd never been to before. I remember just going off like I'd normally do. Training was all about calisthenics at the time.
Yeah.
My running training was just Saturday, go to parkrun. It'd be like coffee, turn up late, run to the start. Like sometimes we'd miss the start, try and catch everyone up like it wasn't well
Organised
or thought through. And
that sounds like quite a lot of park runs, to be fair.
It's the PRS, the Parkrun Special. Yeah.
it's exactly what it's supposed to do. Just go hell for leather and see what
That's
happens.
what keeping me accountable.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't break 20 minutes. My PB was 20:20, and my approach was just try and run faster.
Yeah.
But then when I started to explore a little bit of the breathing stuff, it's only about a month maybe, where just this notion of breathing a little bit deeper with a little bit more control in terms of speed, rather than it just being like panty when it starts to feel hard, is more efficient, helps you stay relaxed. And I was like, okay, so breathe a little bit deeper, a little bit slower. Doesn't seem too difficult to do. So we set off as usual, and I'm like head down and like just chasing people that are just better runners than you, but the mentality of rugby, just chase him. I get to the point where it was like I couldn't hang on to these people ahead, and I was like, right, hold on, mate. You said you were going to focus on your breathing like today, so rather than focusing on them, focus on breathing. Started just doing a little bit deeper, a little bit slower. It weirdly I didn't feel like I'd ran very fast. I didn't know the course, so I sort of like came around this corner and I was like at the end, and I was a bit disappointed. I didn't even look at my watch. I was like, well, that definitely wasn't a PB, like nowhere near, because I just don't feel tired. And then I had a glance at a Casio Illuminator back then.
Nice.
And at 19:17, I dropped 1 minute and 3 seconds off. And not only dropped it off, it was like how I felt by doing it. I was like, there's something in this.
Yeah.
I was skeptical, but I was like, oh, there's something in this. And it's like some of the runners I was then working with S&C-wise, it was like, where else can this go?
And interestingly, it was halfway through the race when you started applying the breathing.
From memory, I wouldn't be able to say exactly when it was, but it wasn't at the beginning.
No.
I was just a bit of a
Yeah. So it's when you got to the point where you couldn't hold on, then you applied the breathing. So for a portion of the race, and that's when suddenly you hit like some sort of flow state or something.
Yeah, it totally. It would have definitely helped with flow state. It would have helped me. I would have been breathing a little bit more efficiently. I think the thing that's key to having a little bit, so when you don't feel in control of your breathing, you panic more. Like your breathing is linked to your stress response. So if you're upper chest fast breathing, I'm feeling more stressed. When I'm feeling more stressed, it's hard to stay flow state and focus, relax, whatever. But also when you're feeling that like stress response, everything tenses up, like muscle tone increases. Your running form's you're gonna lose that form. So that speed of breathing sort of hijacks everything. And basically brain wants you to stop when you don't feel like you can carry on anymore. So because at that stage, having only really been experimenting for about a month, I hadn't really created any real adaptation, probably, or highly likely.
Sure.
It's not been going on long enough. But I had a tool that allowed me to just feel more in control, and that made a big difference.
Which I think that's actually a really important point, because that means you're actually presenting something to listeners, watchers, viewers that is instantly actionable without having to commit to any sort of like 6 weeks time payoff, which we'll get into all of that
Yes,
good
it's a
stuff.
beautiful bit of it.
Here's
You've got
something.
both. You've got like, you can do something that will affect it immediately, but you've also got, what about doing this in training, create adaptation? Then it gets, because I've now gone 18:40 from a 5K.
Through adaptation, through training.
Just in San, as like a 43-year-old bloke that should be getting worse as I get older.
Just on that, are you running more though?
Oh, for sure. So, yes, let's be dead clear about this. I am not saying breathe.
Just breathe.
So there are some studies that show if someone practices breathing for 4-6 weeks, they can improve their breath control whilst running.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's like getting your running training right, getting your S&C work right, and getting your breathing right, get all the things right together. I think what is exciting about breathing is it's a little like central pillar or point of all of those things.
So you say that breathing has been overlooked in elite sport or in sport for far too long. Why has it been ignored when everybody's looking for most marginal gains? And it feels like you say it's the thing that connects so many elements.
Yeah. That was every sort of expert researcher coach that I spoke to for research when I was doing the book. I asked that same question to everyone, because it's an interest, and everyone, nobody had like a definitive answer of, this is why. But there was an interesting professor, Dempsey, in 1985 or mid-80s, that presented in a lecture that the lung is not actually overbuilt for exercise. It's underbuilt for anything over 85% of your VO2 max. Whereas an assumption is that our lungs and our respiratory system, they're overbuilt for what we need to do. So you never have to worry about it or think about it. And what we see now in the research, but as well as in elite sport, the people are doing it, but people aren't talking about it too much, because, from my work in rugby, like the team that's best at rugby is going to win the rugby match.
Yeah.
The breathing isn't the most important thing, but it might be one little tool that helps a player in various different situations and scenarios. And the reality is now there are a lot of people, I've worked with a number of them, but then also know stories of others. There are a lot of people utilizing breathing, everything from sort of recovery, like after training, to managing nerves before, and then actually like what they're doing in their actual performance. It's a really exciting time, because over the next, let's say 10 years, it's going to really trickle down, and everyone's going to get to benefit from it.
What do you think is the biggest mistake that we're making breathing wise? If I'm going to do a park run and I'm thinking, right, I want to try and improve it, what am I doing wrong that I could sort out quite quickly?
Speed
of breathing.
Speed is the kingpin. Speed is the domino that affects everything else. So the faster you're breathing, the less efficient it is. The faster you're breathing, the more stressed you're going to feel. The faster you're breathing, the harder it is to get into flow state. The faster you're breathing, your brain is going like, this is too much for me. Our perception of this is an interesting one that came out of some research. Our perception of effort during running, but during any exercise, is more closely linked to your breathing rate than your heart rate or blood lactate levels. And you're like, so again, like the speed of my breathing affecting my perception of effort. So the faster I'm breathing, the harder it feels, regardless of what your blood lactate levels are like. Whereas we think that would be your blood lactate is like a really key parameter, and like, yes, improve your ability to utilize that, but control your breathing, change your perception of effort. And you can control your breathing by actually just being aware of it. So the biggest mistake people make is, if I go and work with a runner now, and the first question I ask is, what is your breathing like when you're running? And a very open question like that. I haven't said, is it nose, is it mouth, is it dive? Just very, and the answer typically is that, I don't know.
I don't know.
I know. You're
just breathe, innit?
Just breathe.
And it might be that you're just breathing amazingly. Like elite runners breathe more efficiently than amateurs. So you might be doing it great, but you might be able to optimize it.
Improve.
Yes, yeah. And I think that's a really important point that I just want to bracket off sort of now down here, is because it's easy for some people to kind of, both elites and people not in the know, to sort of scoff at this as something that's like, it's just breathing. What are the classics? So I've been doing it my whole life, and all that stuff. But at one end of the spectrum, you've got people who kind of have never tried, so how would you know? And at the other end, I think at the elite end of the spectrum, it's easy to pick people out and say, well, they don't do any of that. But you don't know they don't do any of that. They might do a lot of that stuff intuitively. Elite level sports selects for elite level performers who are probably just doing this stuff that the rest of us actually have to learn to do. And to your point, I think you mentioned the Dempsey study. There's always been a big assumption made that your lungs, your sort of cardiorespiratory system will get fitter, and it will as a result of training. But it's just going to come along for the ride, and not kind of drilling down on the fact that you could be training this thing separately, right?
Well, and the thing that Professor Dempsey highlighted was that as you're training the rest of your body's systems, that above 85% of VO2 max, your respiratory system actually starts to become a weak link, unless you're specifically training it.
Yeah,
because it's like that auto of your breathing with your brain means that, well, it's this beautiful thing where it can be auto, but you can choose to do it, whereas other stuff you can't change.
It's one of the only systems, right? Yeah, that's both autonomic but also conscious. Yeah.
And if you want to, if you don't consciously do something with it and just let the auto run and the auto run riot, what if your auto isn't optimal for you? Because there's a number of things that are going to affect whether you're able to optimally breathe well. Like a very simple one that related to the speed is that a slightly slower breath allows you to take a deeper breath where your lungs are more efficient lower down. And what we see when we study elite runners compared to amateur runners, elite runners during like a VO2 max test will increase their tidal volume. That's like the size of their breath, so we can think of depth and size. They increase their tidal volume all the way up to exhaustion, or they can do. Whereas an elite runner, we struggle to increase the size of our breath and depth of our breath. So then you just have to carry on breathing faster, and that then leads you to the brakes coming on of I got to stop. Perceptive effort's too hard. This exercise is too hard for me.
Which is this sort of psychophysiological feedback loop of this is hard, so I'm breathing harder. This feels hard, so I'm breathing harder, and it's just a spiral.
I gotta stop.
Yeah, it's a spiral until you're thrown up in a bush, right? So to sort of ground this in real life for our viewers, what are the warning signs then that breathing is limiting your performance, even if you're fit, as you say?
Yeah.
Even if you think you're really fit and you're continuing to get fit.
Because by the way, a 20-minute 5K is still a great time for 5K, right?
Yeah.
So you are super fit. I mean, that would put you in the top.
Yeah, I mean, you weren't coming from 30 minutes.
Yeah.
That's actually, I find that interesting because if you went from 30 minutes to 26 minutes, or if you went from 40 minutes to half an hour, it's kind of like, the gains were on the table as such. But to be making improvements around the 20-minute mark as at the time, like a very, very recreational runner, that's the juice was worth the squeeze there, right? So for everyone else.
Well, my starting point, I don't want this to be sort of, because there is like I played professional rugby and then that was my...
Yeah.
I'm talking about when I was 20, but when I was first able to run symptom-free, I tried to go on a run with my wife and she was annoyingly very good. She played like Premiership football. And, I didn't even manage 2K. So I didn't have a time for 10. Like, so, my
And you didn't manage 2K because...
Just couldn't do it. Yeah. And ironically at the time, probably I couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that was something to look out for.
Right.
So I've been on that journey.
Before we move on to kind of what, how people can self-diagnose here, one thing here I find so interesting is that that's often the case, right? People stop because they're struggling with their breath, but then the solution, and this is the solution, just as has always been presented, is just get fitter. Yeah. And it's like this. There's an very obvious symptom here.
Barrier to, exactly. And what I'm so excited about the book is that there's a bit for everyone in terms of going. If you're trying to like maximize your thing and you want to do your sub 3 hour marathon or your 5K, whatever, or you're like you just want to have that access to running. That's such a simple, beautiful exercise to do, but is a bit of a barrier to you because you just. Feels horrible to feel out of breath. Yeah. Like it feels horrible.
Yeah.
And so you don't do it. So to the point of like, what's your biggest telltale sign would be, is it all driven from your upper chest? And is it fast, like you don't feel like you're in control of it? Because something I always say is like, are you in control of your breathing or is your breathing controlling you? And if you get control of it, you start to then be able to control your nervous system, but everything comes to play.
My mum was a nurse, and I'll never forget. I did a cross country years and years ago. I must have been about 11 or 12, and she just said to me, and I was really sport Billy, played rugby, played football, ran around doing everything. Never really ran and it was the county cross country through the woods near where we lived. And she just said to me, and it's always stuck with me. She said, "If you start getting tired, breathe through your nose."
Oh, interesting.
And this is my mum at the nurse, and this would have been in the early 80s, right? She said, and I don't know why necessarily she said it to me, but she said it'll just slow your heart rate down and you'll be able to just keep going. Anyway, I won that race. I lost a trainer halfway round, but I was loving it. It was in the mud. I finished with one trainer and it was just joyous. And that stuck with me all my life when I'm running and I feel like I'm sort of getting a bit out of breath. I'll slow down. Is that the key, or is that just oversimplifying it, just breathing through your nose?
Yeah, it's a great question, and there's been it's an obvious question in that, like, you've only got two holes in your face, haven't you? Like,
you can't breathe through your ears.
Yeah, and your brain's popping out of those ones, your eyes. So you've got two options really. You're going to use your nose, or you're going to use your mouth, or a combination of the two. So here's a good example to a VO2 max test back in the day would be a mouthpiece.
Yeah.
And the nose would be clipped, and the assumption that you have to do it through the mouth. Now it's a mask that goes around. You can use nose, mouth, or both. But it's even then you're still a bit. I feel a bit claustrophobic when I do that. But our assumption was it was only the mouth, and I guess with James Nestor's bug breath and Patrick McKeown's work with the Oxygen Vantage has opened up this, like, well, actually you've either got two options. You could use your nose or your mouth, but which has been great. But then we've simplified it to go like one's better than the other. Have a look at what the research says, and then actually what is it, the practical application of it like, because those two things are not always the same. And for most people, there's going to be a threshold at which nasal breathing may start to limit your ability to oxygenate sufficiently. And that's going to depend on some obvious factors, like literally the size of your nose, but then also like what level of adaptation that you've got. What am I doing with my airway? Like up top, what am I doing with my airway? My tongue has a massive effect on that. What's my posture like? My rib cage, my pelvis, my diaphragm, all the way down to how my feet are sinking with my breath. Like, you stack all these things up together, and whether you choose your nose or your mouth, you're optimizing that system. And then what people typically find is, oh, actually, when I stack things in my favor, I can do more with my nose than I thought. With a bit of training, it gets better. And then I use my mouth when I need to. But there's earn the right to mouth breathe, rather than letting mouth breathing just being a compensation because you're just not even thinking about it.
Yeah. And when you say adaptation, I think you literally just mean like it feels hard to breathe through your nose, right? Most people, they've never done it before. They go out for a run and you tell them, take a sip of water, hold it in your mouth for the whole time. If you've never done it before, it can feel very uncomfortable, can't it? Because you're so used to having this big hole here.
Yeah.
And suddenly you reduce this small hole. But actually all of those stack in your favor things you're talking about, they actually a lot of them pull themselves together once you start using the nose, right? It forces you
it can be a great tool to help like regulate the speed of it a little bit, like what your mum was saying. I think that one of the misconceptions we've got on the assumption, and also just just not really reason, when you ask someone, how do you breathe when you run, and they go, I don't know, I'll have to let me go and have a run and then I'll come back to you and tell you the answer. They're going to breathe through the nose, so long as we help them understand their airway and get their tongue in the right position, they're going to be able to do more with their nose than they thought. And typically any type of training session, whether it's running or high rocks or just any type of training session, you're always going to start with a warm-up. And your warm-up is always going to be easier. And you're going to be able to breathe through your nose in your warm-up. You think of some of the athletes that I've worked with that are non-runners, UFC fighters, rugby players, where their nose is like halfway across the other side of their face, and they go, Jacko, I can't breathe through my nose, mate. Listen, like, you can hear it, and it's like, the nose is here, and I'm like, mate, but let's just try a little bit of work on your tongue and your airway, understand your airway, and then see if at least you can breathe whilst you're sat at home through your nose whilst you're watching telly, rather than just sat.
Can I just ask then, you mentioned the tongue.
Yeah.
What should my tongue be doing? Should it not be hanging out the side of my mouth? Like,
That's the can I demonstrate something?
Please do.
Well, what I'll do is we'll try and but we've got cameras, but we can discuss what you're doing. We can describe
we'll do
it.
audio description.
Yeah.
Always was in the Boy Scouts, always compared with a Q-tip.
You've got a Q-tip.
A cotton bud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is
You know what's he knows
my
what's
favourite
coming.
party trick of yours. Yeah.
So first, if we both three of us, one hand on your chest, one on your belly, and don't have your tongue, just have your tongue like resting loosely at the bottom of your mouth.
Yeah.
And breathe up your nose, because when you think about a nose, it goes up. So if I breathe up my nose, and you can see I'm like seeing a nice bend, like your upper hand is moving, it's upper chest driven. Your diaphragm is closer to the bottom hand, but you're breathing. Your tongue isn't optimized for your airway, and you're breathing up your nose.
Yeah.
And everything moves up. Okay. So if I go to that camera.
So you're putting the Q-tip up your nose, up your left nostril.
Yeah, and it doesn't really go very far.
No.
And this is, of
Because it
course,
gets
how
stuck.
most people think they're breathing, right? They think they're breathing up their nose, and then it does a U-bend, right?
And imagine if I've broken my nose here.
Mm-hmm.
I've got deviated septum. I've got
Yeah.
something going on up here. Your nasal canal goes backwards.
So you're now pushing the Q-tip horizontally into your face.
And
It's disappearing.
disappeared
Into the
altogether.
face is a great. That's the cue that I use.
Yeah.
So we go. God, so I just assume it. So the assumption
So
is
I'll
that
leave it
the
there for a
Q-tip's
moment.
going. Yeah, please goes up your nose, but actually it goes straight back into. And the Q-tip, we can now see the end of it. It's disappeared.
If you,
And, wait, so if you think of a skull,
Yeah.
what's in the middle?
Yeah, of course.
It's
Yeah,
a big
the
black.
whole-
yeah.
So you have like three canals. The lowest canal is most horizontal. So like it was there.
It's just pulling out. Now you are, for anybody who's not
We can
watching
sort of
this,
see-
yes. So what Jacko's doing is he's holding the Q-tip parallel to his cheek, so we can see how
Wanna
far.
have a push?
No, I don't
Oh, I
really.
do, of course I
I
do.
don't. I don't. It's quite.
But it's like it's not uncomfortable.
No.
And there's a load of space there.
Yeah. I
It
find-
demonstrates a point that
It's fascinating, isn't it? Because
Thank
you're
you,
absolutely
Shephard.
right. Yeah. Please be careful if you are going to try. Because for years we've watched magicians do things up the nose and
exactly.
pull it back through their mouth.
Well, kids, you got children.
Yeah.
I haven't, but
They
put a pee up
and it comes out.
It's connected. So the tongue position.
Yes.
One of the experts, a biological dentist, Dr. Seb Lomas, had a fascinating conversation with him. Sat in a dentist chair for about an hour, and we'd not looked at my teeth because it was all about my tongue and my airway and all. Because that affects the microbiome of the mouth, which then affects your gums and your teeth. Anyway, so he was adamant that your tongue is probably the most important muscle in your body. But even if it's not the most important, it's definitely the most undertrained muscle. So if you use your tongue to feel the roof of the mouth, the whole of your palate, all that space between your teeth, the top of your mouth is just below where I put that Q-tip.
Yeah.
So your tongue is going to give you some feedback of like, oh, I want the air to travel back that way. Yeah. And the tongue, I want as much of your tongue touching the roof of the mouth as possible,
Yeah.
but nice and relaxed with the mouth and jaw. That's the only thing, like when you start doing funny stuff with the tongue, people like start doing all sorts. I've got some amazing photos
Gurning,
of like people where we're trying to show.
So
But
relax your jaw, get your tongue
relax
moving.
the jaw, but just get your tongue up. People will put, if this is my tongue and this is the back of the tongue, this is the front, my teeth are like here. People will put the front of the tongue up, but it's about getting like more of the like back of the tongue up, if anything. But my tongue is up, mouth is closed and relaxed. Yeah. And then if you put one on the chest and one on the belly, and then with the tongue up, touching as much of the palate as possible, breathe backwards rather than up your nose. And then you feel here moving more.
Going down in my hand that's on my diaphragm, my belly.
Yeah. So breathing backwards with your tongue up, simplest thing you can do to improve your nasal breathing. At your low level intensity exercise and your warm ups, you'll definitely be able to do that.
yeah, or even just every day, right?
Or your every
Just
day
yeah.
should be a non. People have got that from like Nestor's book. Like your everyday, I'm watching telly. I should be. And if you, an experiment I like to do all the time is you go to where the general public are. You go on some supermarket or train, or you go and look at everybody who's got no idea about breathing whatsoever, no idea about health or anything. Blah, blah, blah. 99% of them will have their mouth closed at rest. It's a bit of a fallacy. People like just do it with your own eyes. Sometimes people are like, oh, everyone's mouth breathing. It's like, no, they're not.
The fact that you
But they're breathing
notice
poorly.
them,
They'll be. This will be pumping up and down. But it's very natural for you to breathe through your nose at rest.
the fact that you notice a mouth breather tells you
Yes.
that
Yeah, I
most
picked it
people
up.
don't do it.
Yeah.
You know, because they wouldn't stand out. If ever, I think it's so common, is it? You know, it's almost a selling point of the breath industry, isn't it? Oh, everyone's mouth breathing. That's not true, because you would, when you do see someone, you will, you notice it.
Yeah.
You wouldn't notice it
If it's
everyone
because
was.
if they're at rest, like I remember being at a petrol station and the lady serving me behind the counter, it was like, and I couldn't. It wasn't for me to say anything, but I was like, that's a very unhealthy breathing pattern at rest.
What's the issue with doing that? What can happen if you are at rest, very slow, panting through the mouth, and if that's your average, if that's your normal.
Yeah.
What's so bad
So
about
a
that?
breathing rate would have probably been like 30 breaths a minute or something easily like that, like 1 second inhale, exhale. And that your breathing is a reflection of your nervous system, definitely at rest, and you're in a state of like chronic stress there, which is going to potentially affect everything.
Yeah.
Take your pick of what illness you've got. Yeah. She's probably got a load of them, unfortunately.
Gosh. I'm sitting here with my tongue stuck to my roof of my mouth.
Yeah,
now.
good. But you can't talk.
No, that makes it. What about? I feel quite faint though if I'm taking those deep breaths like that.
Yeah.
Is that a symptom of something? Or
if you start, so just because you're breathing deeper, because we're just sat here chatting, having a nice time. We're not exercising, so my metabolic demand is very low. Just because you're using your diaphragm doesn't mean you have to take a big breath.
Right.
It's a great point. So actually now go like small and deep rather than deep and big. And then you set then a tone, a bit of a habit, a new norm, so that when you go running, you're going to do your marathon in London. Whether you choose to use your nose or your mouth during the marathon, there'll be times during that marathon when maybe you can't manage nasal breathing, but you're still going to use your diaphragm if you've trained that.
Yeah.
But you'll breathe bigger. Like we said, remember about the elites, like as they get harder exhaustion, they can keep increasing the size of their breath rather than just breathing fast. So the diaphragm's key to that. The other thing that then is part of that is your rib cage, because your diaphragm is housed by the rib cage. And depending on how tight your rib cage is going to affect how well you can expand it. And the position of your rib cage is going to affect how well your diaphragm can move or how much it can move. And all of those things link into like your running posture.
So can you shift the position of your rib cage then?
Yeah. Talk us through it.
Do you want me to?
Do you want to give us
rib
that
cage
out?
I'm always keen to get myself. Here we go. Go on.
I wonder why you
don't do all that training just to keep your shirt on, do you?
Do you want me to take my shirt off? I don't mind taking it off, but can you do it in a t-shirt?
So for the benefit of the tape, Jacko now has his fantastic abs out. So does Ben.
Oh, so everything three.
So relax the abs. So this is an important one. Like if you tense your abs, you're going to restrict your rib cage and be able to move and restrict your diaphragm. Then you have to breathe into your chest. So relax stomach. If our stomach's relaxed, then I can get my fingers under there dead easily. There you go. And then you start to say your diaphragm is underneath there.
Okay.
Yeah. Your ribs themselves, when you breathe in, are supposed to widen. So if I breathe in,
yours is really
pushing.
You see that?
It's pushing my hands out. So if you put your hands on the outside like this, if you breathe in, there you go. Yeah, nice. It's expanding, and then when you exhale, they come back in. But if you tense your abs real hard, get the six pack on. Now try and breathe in. It's like, can you feel that's restricted?
Yeah. So you've got to be relaxed there.
Yeah, if I'm holding tension in my core whilst I'm trying to run, because some of my coaches told me, he needs to be strong through his core, then you're restricting your breathing. Your diaphragm is a deep core stabilizer. Like your diaphragm, your breathing dynamics should be creating a lot of pressure in there. So there's a lot of stuff. But what's nice is like, get your ribcage on top of your pelvis and use your diaphragm. And then you're ticking off all these boxes of good running form, nice efficient breathing, economical with your running. More enjoyable because it's like I can feel in control.
Yeah.
I can relax.
And it's such low-hanging fruit, isn't it? It's not, here's this 6-week sprint program. I'm doing sled push. I'm doing unilateral leg extensions to build my quadricep muscle. It's none of that. You can sit down. You don't even have to take your top off. But you can sit down and discover this. You can breathe in seated and just discover, okay, my pelvis is rolled forward, it's back. What's this doing to how much air can I feel here? And it's such low-hanging fruit of improvements, right?
Like with that low-hanging fruit, any training that you're doing, whether you're on the watt bike or the skier, whatever it is that you're doing, well, you're going to be breathing. So you can just start to be aware of it and trying to go like, how does it feel? Am I in a good alignment with my ribcage and pelvis? Like, can I take a bigger, deeper breath, or do I feel restricted? And just start to, one of the things that I do, because I need it for my own training, but everyone that I work with, like all the professional elite athletes, they don't want to do more training on
Yeah.
top of what they're already doing. They'll do some recovery things on top because recovery is key. But where can we integrate the breathing into what you're already doing? So depending on what session you've got a 5K, you've got an interval, you've got a long steady one. There's a different like breathing technique just to optimize the thing it is that you're doing.
And you're already breathing.
You're
So
already breathing and you're already training.
You're just going to do it differently.
So you're just going to put those two things together. And actually the real secret sauce with it is when you put them together, then they start driving each other's adaptation because your session becomes better. Like say I'm doing a 4x4 like Norwegian method type of 4 minutes of hard work and then 3 minutes recovery. I'm going to try and maximize my breathing so I can push myself during those 4 minutes and manage that like perception of effort so that I don't feel like I'm going to stow off. And then my 3 minutes recovery, I'm going to do some stuff with my breathing to maximize that heart rate recovery so that then I can come back into that next block of 4 minutes, better recovered physically and mentally, and then push myself out. So I get more out of the session because I'm optimizing my breathing, my nervous system to allow me to.
Anyone listening, it's now, it's that thing of don't think of a pink elephant. Once you're thinking about it, it's there. Most people who are probably listening are going to go away and achieve the lowest hanging fruit of breath, which is just paying attention to it during the work. Where I think it's just as important, if not more important, that you touched on there is during recovery. Now, whether you're running sprints, as you say, you're on the watt bike, or you're strength training, between sets, when we all just drift onto autopilot, we jump on the phone, whatever it is we're doing, what can and should people be doing between bouts of effort with their breath? And as we say, you're breathing anyway, so you might as well pay attention to it, to optimally recover.
So two key points, starting with one question. In this recovery period, what is the purpose? So is this recovery period one where I need to optimize my recovery, meaning get heart rate down as quickly as possible so I can recover well? Or is this recovery period one where I'm going to like try and create an adaptation to get better at recovering? And I'm going to have two very different approaches for those two things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like in that Norwegian 4x4 methods example, the 3 minute recovery would start with, I call it like an intra-recovery breathing protocol. Dumping off CO2 if you feel like you can't control your breathing. CO2 is a big driver for our breathing. So using the mouth to dump it off, get rid of the stuff that's driving breathing out.
So just big out breaths.
Yeah.
Strong force
open the big
active,
hole.
Open the big hole, use it well. And use it, but do it as quickly as possible. So then you can get back to a controlled breathing rate, change that perception of effort, and then start to be able to slow down your exhalation, which is the part of the breathing cycle that's going to help bring your heart rate down. I had like an example where I was doing some testing on myself for the book where I'd done this, I literally was doing the 4x4 method, and my heart rate spiked at 180 at the end of my last rep, which for a 43-year-old is beyond, so it was high.
110%, baby.
Then the first minute of recovery, dumped off CO2, got back in control of my breathing, and I was down, got my heart rate down to 150. And then by the second minute, it was down to 120, which is well within zone 1 for me. So then I had another minute left, feeling flipping great. I was ready to go. I was like, you've still got another minute. I was like, okay, cool.
And what you did, mechanically, you dumped CO2 as quickly as possible, and then you just worked on controlling that exhale.
So that you can get control of your whole breathing rate using the diaphragm that we just introduced there. So I'm going to use the diaphragm at all times. But when I can't control that breathing rate, I'm much more likely to go to that upper chest. So get control, and then start to slow the exhalation down. It's a Goldilocks thing. Too much, you're going to feel. If you slow your exhale down too much, you're going to make yourself feel out of breath. Yeah. So it's just finding that nice little sweet spot where I'm in control. It's a little bit of slowing. If you measure your heart rate, you'll see your heart rate coming down in real time.
Yeah. Whereas most people just rely on sort of hopes and prayers for their heart rate to come down, right?
Yeah. Or it's a fitness thing. It's just the fitter I get, it will, but why not do both? I think that's the why not do both? I'm going to get that tattooed on my forehead. Why not do both?
I was fascinating. While we're recording this, the Winter Olympics has just finished, and I don't know if you train with any biathletes, but they are fascinating. The way they have to control their heart rate because they're cross country skiing, Nordic skiing, and then they have to shoot targets the size of a tennis ball or a golf ball.
Wild, isn't it?
And it was fascinating listening to the description of how they do it and how they control their heart rate to go from the high intensity aerobic state that they're in to try and get to where they're either stood up or they're lying on the ground. And when they take the shots, they do it between heartbeats
Yeah.
because the heart
Everything's
rate,
still.
everything is still. That's how much control they have
And they are 100% working on their breathing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
to be
100%.
Olympic elite standards.
I've not worked with anyone in the winter games. Some different sports that like BMX,
Really?
the Olympics.
Yeah.
That is an interesting one. I got one rider does like the racing, and then one doing the tricks, and it's like two different phenomenal athletes. I was like, lad took his shirt off, and I was like, jeez.
Yeah.
I was like thinking, BMX, why do you need to be so stacked? And then for the race, see him sprint off, and you're like, okay, that's why you're absolutely
Yeah, the explosive speed
it's
and power.
crazy. But their ability to manage heart rate, ability to interesting for the tricks was like I can't remember how many sort of tricks they do in one sort of round, but there would be a breath hold as part of it. Like would hold breath and
To do a
brace
sequence.
to go through a sequence.
Wow.
So ability to actually practice breath holding so it's easier, so that his heart rate doesn't spike so much when he has to use that. It's been some two really interesting projects.
I keep circling the same point here of that. You're doing it already. You're already breathing. You shouldn't go through the motions in the rest of your training, right? You think about what you're doing. We talk about controlling the rep, controlling our form.
Intentional, yeah.
And then we rack the bar and just switch off.
Yeah.
There's
Well, can I mention the other example? Because we said a question like, do you want to make it quick, or do you want to like the adaptation?
train the adaptation, right?
So like,
So
have I
just
got-
to put that into perspective, you're saying now for the difference between someone like myself, casual trainee who just wants to recover between sets, and someone for whom someone like a rugby player, a football player, recovering between bouts is actually a vital skill to learn, right?
Yeah. So like take a UFC fighter where we've got that recovery period between rounds. In the fight, we're going to use what we just said. But in training, some elements of training, we might go, right, well, you've now got a 30-second rest period or a minute rest period. You're going to make yourself breathe through your nose so that the airflow is more restricted. So your diaphragm has to work a little bit harder. So you can't offload that CO2 so quickly. And your body's then going to adapt. The receptors that sense that CO2 start to downregulate. You build up that tolerance to it. You build up a bit more strength for your breathing muscles. But that recovery period initially might feel a little bit hard. Like it's like I'm doing something. But whenever you know, something I've always come back to is like, if you notice you're doing something different and you can feel it, it's like, well, that's just your body sending a signal to go like, this isn't what we're normally doing. But that means you're then creating adaptation. If it's noticing something is different. So then you get the best of both worlds. It's just being a little bit, it's not rocket science to be smart about, is this session going to be beneficial for me to like work on challenging my recovery or not? It depends. What are you doing next? I think the other thing I was going to say in terms of like the resting between sets in the gym, using that time, if you were focused on your breathing, almost don't care what you do, just thought about your breathing, be aware of your breathing. One thing you'd definitely be doing is you'd be being present. You'd be like in the moment, and you could use that to like just dial in your focus for the next lift.
Yeah.
And that would have benefit.
Yeah. I often say that most injuries in the gym are actually injuries of distraction. They're injuries, I've got slipped disc, and it happened because I took a phone call in between a set and I rushed back to what I'm doing, max effort set, but I switched off. If you stay with the breath, that doesn't happen. Like you're present, right? And I think it's aside from the sort of mechanistic, the sort of downstream effects, positive effects it's going to have on your body, keeping you in the room with the weights is massively important. And the same is true of each rep of, if you're lifting, right? The breath. Can you talk to us a little bit about how, because I think it's obvious, and anybody who doesn't already know it is just kind of burying their head in the sand, that improving your breath for cardio-respiratory fitness is probably important, the respiratory being the key.
Yeah.
What about strength training?
Yeah.
How important is the breath there?
I think depending on it probably shifts gears a little bit in terms of what the breath is able to do for you, because we're probably now thinking a little bit, or my mind is now thinking a little bit towards that, those breathing dynamics and how you utilize your diaphragm to create stability through your midline. So most people, we will hold our breath and brace to create stability, which only lasts as long as you can hold your breath. And it's quite stressful, rather than can you breathe and maintain like structural integrity, core stability. That's like a key bit to it. I think the other bits are the position of your rib cage. We talked about affecting the position of your diaphragm, but what sits on the back of your rib cage is your shoulder blade. So the position of your rib cage will affect your breathing, but it'll affect the position and function of your scapula, which is then going to affect your shoulder. So how you breathe and how you position and hold that rib cage for good posture, for good breathing, I would say, is also going to help your shoulder to be more functional, more stable too. And then likewise with the hips, if you're not creating stability in that section below your between your rib cage and your pelvis with your breathing dynamics and your diaphragm, there's some big old juicy muscles in there like psoas major, like your hip flexors. They'll go, right, if you're not creating stability there, I've got the option. I'm just going to stay tight. So hip flexors will hang on. And then we've got like anterior pelvic tilt. People got issues around their hip. And it's like until one of the physios that's worked with a lot of Olympic athletes that I spoke to about this, talked about this being a canister. And if you, like a can of Coke, if you open a can of Coke and let all the pressure out, you can crush that can. Yeah. But if you've got pressure in the can, that canister, you can't morph it or change it at all. Your breathing is that pressure in your canister with your diaphragm. What she had observed with runners that she worked with, if they had hip pain and complaining of tight hips, she identified they were upper chest dominant breathers, until she sorted out their diaphragm and their breathing dynamics, that hip pain wouldn't go away, no matter how she would traditionally treat it.
So poor breathing can contribute to hip pain, back pain, all things that I struggle with.
Yeah,
definitely.
Sure. Like psoas major attaches into the diaphragm.
Yeah,
the diaphragm attaches to the lumbar spine. Like
one big unit, right?
Yeah, one big slab of tissue. And what's in the middle? Yeah. Like I used, as an S&C coach, I used to look at, you get taught all of the stuff traditionally in the textbooks, and not really a lot about breathing. Like the diaphragm gets mentioned as a muscle, but and we'd look at the chest and the shoulder and like I now look at the body and I go, I bought one of them skeletons. Like I've got a skeleton at home now just because I like it for demonstration purpose. But when you look at
I'm glad you qualified that then. I like it for
but when you look at
evenings in on my own.
When you look, there's not a lot in North Wales.
Northern Wales.
When you look at a skeleton, it's dead obvious. You just see this big rib cage, some arms hanging off the sides, and a pelvis and legs hanging off the bottom. You don't go chest, you like rib cage. You don't go back, you go rib cage. Yeah. Like you're one big rib cage, and there's just stuff hanging off it. Where you put your rib cage in space affects how the rest of the body organizes around it. So the rib cage is sort of central to you, and then your diaphragm is at the bottom of that, and it's central to how you breathe, but also how you move, how you transfer force.
You described that the woman in the petrol station, and her breathing was really indicative of this issue with her nervous system. I think you described breathing as the remote control for the nervous system.
Or a reflection of the nervous system. Yeah, and it can be a remote control of the nervous system.
Can you just explain what you mean by that? Because undoubtedly, I think there will be people listening and watching that would love to understand, because we all live in sort of high pressure environments. Yeah. And actually, if we can potentially control our breathing to allow us to go about everyday 100%. Life in a sort of less max stress position, then that would be a huge benefit.
And for those that are just like, no, just give us the training information. It's like, if you go into your training sessions or anything that's going to challenge you physically, if you go into that in a well-regulated state, the chances of you performing well in that are going to be different to you going in a dysregulated state. So keep it super simple, because we don't have to overcomplicate it. Starting with a song. Every breath you take. Every breath you take, on the inhale, heart rate speeds up. On the exhale, heart rate slows down.
Yes.
That's the nervous system upregulation, sympathetic. On the inhale, exhale, down regulation, parasympathetic. So if I want to try to calm my nervous system down, I need to calm my breathing down. The speed of breathing is just a whole. The faster I'm breathing, the more regulated I am. So if I can slow my breathing down as a whole, calm my breathing, calm my nervous system. So a slower breathing rate, and something as simple as if you just count your breathing. Yeah, it's difficult to actually get a resting breathing rate from someone. If I say, right, I'm going to time you for a minute, count your breathing, I won't get your normal 20 breaths a minute. I'll get your 10 breaths a minute, because you're actually starting to control
focus on it. Yeah.
But what that tells us is that you just count your breathing, it's going to just start to slow it down. I know you're big on that. We've done some training before where it's like, just being aware of it makes such a big difference. In our day-to-day life, if I close my mouth, the air just can't come in and out so quickly through your nose. So it's going to naturally slow it down. So if I can slow and calm my breathing down, maybe spend a little bit of time like more on the exhale if I want to down-regulate rather than the inhale, I'm creating a calmness to that nervous system.
That's really beneficial.
Yeah, for sure.
You touched on it in the training, but it's just as important in regular life, getting the kind of, I don't know, the golden rule or the golden mean or the lowest hanging fruit is just getting a hold of that exhale, right? And to your point, actually, the minute you start thinking, like you say, it's very annoying because if you ask someone, how are you breathing? The answer is almost better now because you've just brought the attention to that.
Yeah.
How are you breathing? Hold on.
It's intuitive. You know, say if someone just came rushing in here like, and they were in all of their clothes, not for running, they're in their work clothes, we'd all, even if we didn't know anything about breathing, go, oh God, you okay? Like, I can tell there's something wrong with you because your breathing doesn't match your metabolic demands. And I'd probably, when I say, oh, calm, you'd probably just instinctively say, try and just calm your breathing down or slow down, take a breath. Yeah. We intuitively actually know some of the absolute basics of this.
Yeah. How can people make sure they're coming back to that regularly throughout the day? Because if you've been panting your whole life, that's a trained, that's a grooved, neurally grooved, nervous system grooved state, right? What are some things people can do or look out for throughout their day? Just as we're at work, we're going about.
It builds on what you said. Or the question of like, how do I calm? One of the simplest ones I say to is listen to your breathing, make it quiet. As soon as you're quiet in your breathing, you naturally slow it down. And I think it's going to be harder for someone that, the worse my breathing is at the start, the harder it is for me to go to improve it. But like I've been there post brain injury. Most people haven't had a traumatic brain injury, but they're in we might be in that state of like dysregulation or upregulation and from other stresses rather than physical ones smacking you in the head. And so it might take a little bit longer, but if you start to be aware of your breathing, you start to make it quieter, even just that, make it quiet, it's going to start to slow it down and calm it.
Yeah, just pay attention, right?
Can you help with snoring, asking for a friend? Is there any top tips that actually it's not me, but my wife randomly, I mean, she's very healthy, but is that something that you've been able to help people with? Just as a side?
Yeah.
Because it's such a massive issue for lots of people, isn't it?
Yeah.
You nearly got very brave there, then you pulled back.
No. I'm not the snorer. But my son, my eldest, if you think about it, my eldest 21-year-old, super fit, but his snoring is a thing. Is there anything
so
that you've worked on?
Interestingly, like a lot of the rugby guys, like the wider your neck circumference, the more potential you have for narrowing or restriction of your airway. So big rugby dudes,
muscle pushing in, right? Yeah.
So the faster you're breathing, the more likely that airway is going to like close off on itself, and you set your tone, your auto, for when you're asleep, when you're awake.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Setting your tone, your rhythm. So if I breathe quite fast during the day, you ain't going to go to sleep. You might be like, I'm sleeping. You don't know what you're like when you sleep.
No.
You wake up in the morning, you're like, oh yeah, but whatever.
Yeah.
But you will have been breathing fast if you were breathing fast during the day.
Yeah.
And then, so work on your breathing in the day to help your breathing be calmer and slower at night, so your system is more calm and down-regulated at night. The other thing, back to the tongue.
Yeah.
Tongue is a muscle. The muscles of the tongue affect the muscles of the airway. Like your tongue's connected all the way down to your diaphragm and all the way down to your big toe through the deep front line. So it's connected through fascia. When you're asleep and you relax, all of your muscles of the body relax. Yeah, not all of your muscles apart from your tongue. All of your muscles relax. So if I lack tone in my tongue because it doesn't live in the roof of my mouth during the day, when it's sagging down at night, it's much more easy for it to fall back and block my airway. And then my airway itself lacks structural integrity if my tongue is basically weak and lacking tone. So working on tongue posture during the day and slowing my breathing down during the day so that my tongue sits well at night and and I breathe slower at night, I'm working on the alto.
Tongue structure is an interesting thing. As we've been sitting here, because that was the first thing you said, I want you to lift your tongue. I've just been sitting here listening to you. It's been brilliant, Jacko, honestly. And with my tongue on the roof, I'm more engaged thinking. And now I'm just sitting there with it, and I can feel my diaphragm, feel my breathing down.
Do you
here.
notice that the airflow is easier?
Thinking about that clearer, going back that way. I played clarinet as a kid, and they were always talking about breathing here with your diaphragm, because you can get a bigger breath, so you can play for longer, or you can hold the tone of the note for longer. And that's a really interesting thing. I'm going to give my son
the tongue. Like, I agree with Dr. Lomas. Like, the tongue, if it's not the most important, it's the most undertrained. Because he trains the tongue. I was like, it was lucky he caught me.
How many reps are you doing?
It was lucky he caught me when I was like into breathing, because otherwise I'd have been like,
yeah.
Why have I paid this dentist? Gone to his primary dentist. He's not looked at my teeth yet.
He's just training my tongue. Tongue training. If you take nothing away, get your tongue training.
Skip tongue day. Skip
Next
diaphragm
on the
day.
Men's Health Squad training plan roster is the tongue specialist tongue day. I wonder.
Do you want one exercise?
Yes.
Yes.
So you've got your mouth really wide open, your tongue on the roof.
Pushing tongue.
So make some, and then notice, like, go slow-mo.
Gets that.
So before it comes off, it's suctioned. You can check, so keep it there. You can check it's suctioned, so keep it suctioned up there. Pinch your nose and try and breathe in through your mouth. And it's like, it blocks your air, right? Yeah. Now, you made a good observation. Look how wide his mouth is.
Yeah.
So if my tongue is tight and I put it up and I create suction, and if it's weak, those two things, if it's tight and it's weak, my mouth won't open very far because it's tight.
Mine definitely feels. Does yours feel tight? Mine feels really tight.
So you want to get it suctioned up and then open your mouth as wide as you can.
How wide that is?
Yeah, you've got miles to go.
Hold it for a good 5, 10, even like Lomas talks about building up to like 3 minutes of being able to hold that suction.
Tongue
and
planks.
you're gonna be able to get that wider, and it's gonna create. You're gonna feel like once you've do a nice 10-second hold for us. Go on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, wider. Don't let it ping off, because when you don't let it ping off, that's the strength of the suction. So now you're lengthening it, but also training the strength of it. And then relax, and your tongue it feels tired, right?
Yeah, I feel like I'm straining it, stretching it.
A little add-on. Once you've created the suction,
lean that head back.
Lift the chin. Don't let the chin fall back, and you're going to feel it stretching even further through there. Yeah.
Sort of fighting that gravity there, yeah.
Or
But then you breathe now. Put your tongue up and breathe. That airflow's going to feel easier. You train the tongue like your nasal breathing.
Double chins as well.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Feel underneath where, not that none of us have a double chin, but where your double chin would be. Put your fingers there, and then rather than suction the tongue, just actually push the tongue up to the roof of the mouth. You can feel those muscles kick. Yeah, even on the side here.
Yeah.
You push the tongue up.
They're all engaged.
The tongue is connected to all the muscles of your jaw, muscles of your airway and throat, and the tongue is going to be supporting that jaw in a good position for your airway. And it has an effect on your breathing instantly.
I'm going to be annoying the wife so much tonight watching telly.
Clicking away.
Well, no, but if it's clicking, it means it's falling off. You've got to keep it there. Yeah,
You won't be annoying her with snoring.
No, I don't. By the way, it's not me.
We can cut.
definitely-
We'll cut all the processing out.
It's definitely not him.
This is a genuine curiosity of mine that, obviously, this is a huge area of interest for me as well. I'm wondering, with the, you've got the entrainment during the day, which leads to breath behavior during the night. I wonder how acute, adaptation is probably the wrong word here, but how acute they are in terms of if somebody were to do deliberate, conscious, controlled breathing with a slow exhale before bed, could that realistically lead into, do you think that could realistically lead into a retrained breath pattern, like quite acutely? So 10 minutes of, some sort of long exhale, controlled breathing before bed, which is great for down regulation anyway. Do you think that would then shift breathing patterns during the night? I've never thought about this before until this moment.
That was my answer. It was a hum. Everyone do a hum? Lovely. How long it lasted and still going. When you hum like that, are you inhaling or exhaling?
Exhaling.
Yeah, Excellent.
Yeah. So and did you have to put any effort into it, or did it just naturally extend it?
Yeah.
Your vagus nerve passes. So we took a little bit about nervous system already. Like your vagus nerve is a really important nerve that sends information back from the body to the brain. Really important for like the down regulation, recovery stuff for sleep. The vagus nerve passes through the voice box, passes through your diaphragm. When you're using your diaphragm nicely, it's massaging, it's innervating it. The vibrations innervate it where it passes through your voice box. If you do some work slowing your breathing down, pre-bed, humming on your exhale, it's a little annoying for the wife, but get her to join in.
Yeah.
But the slowing of the exhale with the humming is bringing your heart rate down, creating more of a parasympathetic shift, bringing on the relaxation response. The vagus nerve is just sending lush information. Lush. Why did I say lush?
Because you're
Very
Welsh,
Welsh.
living in
Yeah,
Welsh.
very Welsh.
Sending-
Sending lush information back up to the brain of like we're safe. We can.
You're safe.
You're not going to drop into a state of unconsciousness for sleep if the brain doesn't feel safe because it wants to protect you. And calming your breathing, humming on your exhale, simplest thing to do. Now, I can't say for certain because I've never then stood over and watched one of my athletes sleeping because that'd be a bit weird. But I have had like screenshots of, oh, here's my Whoop data or whatever. Here's my sleep data from thing. Like I'm normally in the 80%, 90% recovery. Like I'm hitting 100% now for the first time. And you know, it was interestingly more than a month after they'd started working with me, and they only just then started doing it. It was like by night 3, 100% recovery score post sleep. Whereas, you know, my question was like, it was like, it works. I was like, I know it works. Why don't you start doing it a month ago?
Yeah, by the way.
But because that little bit of bias, you know, there's all that. But, you know, I think where you've got to find, if I'm speaking to the listener now, if I think of it from when I'm coaching, if I'm working with you, I got to find where's that little opportunity that's going to be really easy for you to do, but it's going to help you get that buy-in, and then we can start adding more stuff into it. So if you're listening to this going, oh, where do I start? It's like, have a little play with a few things and see what grabs your attention, what gets you by, and what makes a change for you. Like like for you, your tongue is like, oh God, I can feel that. You're gonna play with that.
Yeah.
As long as that then works, which it does, but as long as it works, it's going to feel better. And as soon as it feels better, then you're going to want to do it. A point I wanted to make before related to that. The person that's got the bad breathing habits potentially might take longer to change, but I fundamentally believe that your body like wants to breathe well and it knows how to breathe well. It's not like back in calisthenics days when we're trying to balance on our hands doing handstands. Like that felt hard, and it always felt hard.
Yeah,
because my hands aren't designed to walk on, my feet are. Whereas with breathing, you look at the functional anatomy of like the body, the respiratory system, the diaphragm, and you look at how it's all set up. It's like, that's how you're supposed to breathe.
Yeah.
So the brain likes it. So it's going to feel nice. It makes my job easy because when it feels nice, you're going to do it.
of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I love it. It's brilliant. Breathe Smarter, Run Stronger. It's your new book, Jacko. It's just fantastic. It's been absolutely fascinating. We've got a round of quick-fire questions that we ask all our guests.
Yeah.
No, we ain't getting
We're not
this is
there
the quiz.
yet.
It's not the quiz. It's not the
This
quiz.
is the pre-quiz
quick
quiz.
fire, okay.
The pre-quiz quiz. Just regulating you or deregulating you.
Upregulating in a moment with panic.
Yeah, no, can I just use my breathing to
Take
calm
a deep breath.
Yeah.
We'll serve them up. You hit them straight back. Got that one?
If you could train with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
Well, because you said dead or alive, I'd say my dad. Because
Beautiful.
I lost him a few years ago and dedicated the book to him. And he was a phenomenal athlete, but also like his nickname was Mad Dog. So he did some weird, like zero science to training.
Yeah.
So it'd have been quite interesting to. I never trained. I was never actually.
That'd be amazing.
I'd love to train with anyone nicknamed Mad Dog.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Jacko, your go-to workout when you're short of time?
Well, this morning I did 4x4 on the assault bike. Lasts like 22 minutes or something.
How was it?
4 minutes on, 3 minutes rest. Boom.
Beautiful
Happy
stuff.
days. I felt in control because I was regular. I mean, it was hard.
Yeah.
Lactate, swimming around, but yeah, in
Assault
control.
bikes,
Some level of control.
Devil's work.
What's one movement you absolutely hate? If you could ban one movement.
I don't really have the only thing I'd ban is like not moving.
Yeah.
Because anything move, but it has to be.
Is there
something that I hate doing?
Assault
I was
bike,
always crap at bench press.
is that still a
but
thing?
but wanted to be good at it.
Yeah. Were you
I
happy
always
to do it? So you can ban it,
I'll ban it.
and then you won't be rubbish at it anymore.
There's no
It's gone.
All right, don't let the door hit you on the way out, mate.
I was going to say, you are definitely the only person that's found the bench press. What's the one song on your workout playlist that's guaranteed to get you fired up?
Oh, I'm big into Cat Stevens at the moment.
Are you?
Oh man, my wife introduced me to Cat Stevens. I'm like, where have you been my whole life? It's just like poetry and songs, and there's slow stuff and there's fast stuff. There's a bit for everything.
Nice.
There's something to be said about listening to slow music when you train, isn't there, in terms of regulation? I'm a big
Well, yeah, I'm
believer in
sure.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll talk more about that when the cameras are off. But yeah, if you could only do one strength and conditioning movement for the rest of your life, what would it be? And you can say bench press now to redeem yourself.
Just bring it back
And we'll
in.
just move on. Yeah.
It would have to be running.
One strength and conditioning movement. What would you
But
do?
why can't that? Why can't
You can have running.
strength and
You
conditioning
can
be
run.
running?
You can run forever.
Or do you want
Give me a
something else?
Yeah.
Like walking lunges, or any sort of variation with a walking lunge,
Weighted.
weighted with like different weights and different like
Ooh.
get quirky with it, like
Yeah.
rather than just
Off balance.
standard. Yeah.
Nice.
yeah.
What's your death row meal?
Good question. I'm a big pizza guy.
Oh, yeah.
I can do a pizza. Yeah, Joey special, 2 pizzas.
2 pizzas. What would be on
Great
them?
Friends reference.
What would be on them? Meat,
Just meat.
bit of veg. To keep the health happy.
It's your death row meal. You're going to die. You don't have to worry about it. You can just have meat.
Cookies. as well.
Cookies.
I'd have cookies.
Yeah.
So pizza and cookies.
Pizza and cookies, yeah.
Beautiful stuff. You can jump into a portal and speak to a 16-year-old Jacko, but you've only got 30 seconds. What are you going to say in that time?
Believe in yourself. And when you struggle to believe in yourself because you've been beaten down, then listen to someone that loves you, that truly knows you, because they'll believe in you. Listen to them.
Beautiful stuff.
Love it. Love it. Absolutely.
And now we're going to stick you on a bar. Actually.
How weak I am.
Let's get to it. You're topless again. I see. You're trying to. I mean,
you can't come to Men's Health and not take your shirt off.
you had a fairly lightweight t-shirt on.
You're lucky
anyway.
I had a t-shirt when I walked in.
He's a bit annoyed he's had to put the cap on because we had
Yeah.
nowhere to put the mic.
I just had my haircut.
Yeah.
Right then, Jacko, welcome to the Men's Health Built for Life Dead Hang Challenge. We're going to challenge you to hang off the bar. And while you hang on the bar, we're going to be asking you general knowledge questions. And then depending on how many get wrong, we will remove a few seconds from the overall. As things stand, Tom Aitken is top of the leaderboard at the moment with 2 minutes and 8 seconds.
Very high hopes.
Yeah,
for
you
though.
win like a thing at a fair, don't you, if you do 2 minutes?
Yes,
hanging?
you do.
Yeah,
You get
it's a giant donkey.
Yeah. Now, I know that you are quite keen to prepare yourself as best you possibly can. So what is the process that we're going to go through before you start?
I'm going to do a breath hold.
Right.
I'll just walk around a little bit. Try and spike. So holding the breath after an exhale can spike the sympathetic nervous system, which is what we want for like trying to beat the record.
Okay.
Good example of a bench press PB with one of the rugby lads literally last week doing this. But it was doing like a power set. So it was like had to hit a certain bar speed and like wasn't hitting it. And I was like, just try it. Exhale, hold your breath, walk over there, walk back, like just keep walking up and down. And he's good at his breath holding, and like let's go, he's like all jacked up, and then boom, hits his.
Smashes it.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll
So
carry
we're going
on.
for it.
Head to your breath hold. Let's
So in.
One of the more exciting things to watch on a video is someone holding their breath.
I'm walking around at the same time, so he's
Yep,
he's
for
pinning his
listeners.
nose closed, so there's no escaping of air or inhalation, and he's just walking up and down, just still walking up and down, and this is spiking.
Yep, still walking up and down.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and you're doing this till you can't hold your breath any longer. That's essentially what you're doing.
Strong air hunger.
He has got good pipes.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
Big inhale. And that's spiked your, that's put you into a real sort of
I'm
raise
hot.
mode.
So sympathetic, like if you're hot, sweating,
Okay.
ramped up.
Let's not waste it then.
Well,
Hands
I
on the
don't.
bar.
Yeah.
I'm going to count you in. Are you ready?
Is this regulation thickness?
Complete regulation.
Everyone else.
Am I allowed my feet on the floor?
Yeah, you can do that.
Feet on the floor, yeah, of course. Right, you ready?
Okay.
We are going in 3, 2, 1.
What is the primary muscle of inhalation?
Diaphragm.
Correct.
What is the capital city of Wales?
Cardiff.
What gas primarily drives the urge to breathe? Oxygen or carbon dioxide?
Carbon dioxide.
What is the Welsh National State Rugby Stadium called?
Millennium Stadium.
Principality Stadium.
Well, it used to be.
Yeah, it was.
I
used to be,
dream.
but no. Roughly what percentage of oxygen we inhale do we exhale unused?
Yeah, about 75%.
Yes, I'll give you that.
At rest, what's a typical adult breathing rate per minute?
Well, it should be about 10 to 12, but it's probably more like 14 to 16.
Yeah,
Well, we'll give you
10
that.
to 18, yeah.
That's 37 seconds. What colour is the dragon on the Welsh flag?
Core.
Is that red?
Red.
In Welsh?
Right.
Yeah.
What's the term for synchronizing breath with stride?
Locomotor respiratory coupling.
Amazing that. Well done. What's the tallest mountain in Wales?
Whitfer.
Snowdon.
Snowdon to the
yeah.
rest of us.
Whitford.
Yeah. True or false? Elite runners always breathe more air than amateur runners at the same relative intensity.
Yes, they will.
No, that's false.
What?
They tend to breathe more efficiently, not
Oh, hold on.
necessarily more.
I got a thing saying amateur, yeah, and elite will breathe less.
Stay in the moment.
What's the Welsh word for Wales?
Cymraeg.
Yes. Nasal breathing primarily helps improve tolerance to which gas?
Carbon dioxide.
Yes.
Who is the patron saint of Wales? Day is coming up any day now.
Yeah.
Oh, St. David, I'm doing a half marathon. I'm losing my grip.
130. Breathing. Oh, stopped at 133.
133.
Good questions there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 right, 2 wrong. It used to be called the Millennium Stadium, didn't it?
It's now called Principality.
It's the Principality, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
think.
But it's, yeah.
Well, I hope you're not.
Yeah.
You're the
Sort of
resident Wales
And I
expert.
just, I got a little bit. I thought it was the wrong way around. Yeah, I wasn't focused.
Yeah. That's the problem.
133.
133.
Only 2 questions wrong. Very strong showing.
That is very strong.
Very strong
We'll
showing.
work out where that goes on it. Can you put your top back on now, please?